Welcome, everybody. Your host, Kenneth Braswell. We're here for the third part of this season session. Looking forward to kind of rounding this three-part session out, a little something for you. Really getting used to the technology and all of the bells and whistles that I'm trying to connect to just keep us flowing, keep you engaged, keep you interested, and giving you great information. And so we're following up on our Faith Over Fear series. This particular one here is the third of the three. And in this session, we're going to be talking about choosing your purpose daily, living a faith over fear life. That's what we're going to be talking about today. And so faith over fear is always, an interesting conversation to have in this third series of work that we're trying to do. Let me just take a quick recap. And so in session one, we identified how fear disguises itself. And we talked about how sometimes when we are trying to be perfectionists or we're engaging in we're procrastinating, right? Sometimes we can hide our fear in behaviors that are numbing, to which we just don't move, we don't do anything. And it is because we have a fear of stepping out, right? We talked about people pleasing, and we also talked about shame. We talked about all of those things and how they can be things that create an environment of fear for us to a certain extent, feel comfortable in, right? And so if you want to learn more about that, just go back to the YouTube page, hit part one, review that if you'd like. And then in the last session, we confronted the lies that fear told us and began rewriting our own truth and shifting from survival to surrender, because there are a lot of things that we carry forward in our lives, whether or not that's something that someone said to us, something that someone did to us, that we are carrying that baggage, and we are functioning under the weight of whatever it is and whatever it looks like, or whoever it is and how they show up in your lives, where you haven't found ways to confront it. In this one, we're going to move from the why to the how. I love when I get to the how, because whys are just the settling of the foundation of the conversation that we're having. And now we're getting ready to kind of really drop right into the how. We're going to build rhythms. We're going to build mindset and a vision to walk it out every single day. There's nothing like walking out your life every single day. Life is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Sometimes you might have to sprint, but life in totality is a marathon. It's a long, long journey. And so a lot of us treat our lives like it's a sprint, and we think that if we run faster, we're going to get there faster. That's not always the case. Most times, whatever you want to achieve in life with any level of substance is going to take time. Your problems oftentimes did not happen quickly, nor will the solution. Here's a scripture that I always like to lean on. It is in Hebrews 11, verse 1. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And so when we talk about this whole notion of faith over fear, faith is something that comes out of our necessity, need, desire, and ability to hope. That's why I always say that, when you encounter somebody who has nothing to hope for. I think that's one of the major issues in our society today where people are just losing hope. They're losing hope in the prosperity of their futures. They're losing hope in the people who are supposed to be stewards of the environment that cultivates the ability for people to achieve their hope. Um, and they're not seeing evidence in their day to day life because they're looking for something to occur to remind them or to make them feel good that they can still be hopeful. And I think that's one of the things that we have to establish more with our children as they enter into spaces that we have yet seen yet. However, we have to raise them in a way that we prepare them with hopeful thoughts and goals and things that they can achieve, and understanding that their life also is not a sprint, it is a marathon. And so, and that's what faith, looks like. And so when we talk about this whole notion, of faith, we don't, it's interesting because, we typically associate faith with religion, and faith is not always attached to religion. It's just not. And so it's a great part of it, right? It's a part of the work. It's a part of the behavior, but it's not always associated with religion, right? Faith is that your ability to believe in something, right? So in the context of someone like myself who's Christian, that belief is in God and it's in Jesus. But that's not everybody's belief system. And so I'm not trying to impress upon you my belief system, but you should know that I am driven by a belief system, and it happens to be Christianity. So however you feel about that, that's how you feel about that. But if you're going to be faithful about anything, you have to believe in something, and you have to believe in that thing wholeheartedly. It can't be that you believe in it for some things and you don't believe in it for other things. If you're not going to put your full 10 toes down effort in believing in whatever that is for you, fear will always find a doorway into your life. So what does a faith over fear life look like? Let's start with number one. A faith over fear life is not flawless. It's faithful. It's about showing up when it's hard, trusting yourself when it's quiet, and taking steps when the path isn't fully visible, right? Life is not perfect. The things that will happen in your life, even on your journey to success or in the successes you will accomplish in your life, it's not going to be easy. You have to trust yourself. You have to be faithful, that good things are going to harvest if you plant good seed. And, I'm going to stop here because, I often say this, and, it doesn't explain everything away, right? It really doesn't explain it all. But I'm going to write this down because I really need for you to know this. I wrote it the wrong way. And so I was going to start this off with good, and it's not good. It starts off the other way. And it is bad things happen to good people. Bad things happen to good people. And so the whole notion of faith over fear is not without understanding that sometimes bad things are going to happen in your life. And so, but my faith also tells me that all things are purposeful. And so nothing is without purpose. And so it may not feel good with respect to what you might be going through, but it is purposeful. And sometimes you will not know what that purpose is until down the line as you remain to be faithful in knowing that whatever it is or whatever it wasn't meant to destroy you. And its power is in strengthening you, not you being weakened by it. And so it's faithful though. Even when you're going through bad things, you have to remind yourself that you still have to show up when it's hard. You still have to trust. And it gets really quiet, right? Even when you're not exactly sure where it's going. The second thing is faith looks like it means you make decisions based on what you're called to do, not what you're afraid of. And so that's why purpose, understanding purpose and calling is so important in your life. And I started some time ago doing a session on faith, purpose, and position. I think I did it, but I probably need to go back to it to rewind to kind of really kind of talk about purpose, because there's a lot of stuff to pack that is packed and needs to be unpacked when I talk about purpose. And so, but living a faith over fear life means that, you know, you do have to make those decisions on what you're called to do, what your purpose to do, and what your purpose to be, and not those things that you're afraid of. The other thing that you will see when you look at a faith over fear life is it's not the absence of fear, but a refusal to let fear set the tone for your life anymore, right? Sometimes fear becomes our driver, and fear can't be our driver in life, which is why I always say, you know, faith and fear can't reside in the same space. It can't function in the same space. It doesn't mean that fear doesn't show up in that space. It just simply means that it cannot fully reside. It cannot fully function when the other is present in the space. So I'll say this again. I said it in the second part. If you are faithful, and fear shows up, then you have to ask your question, where is my faith, right? And so it's one of those things that you have to do to kind of, it's a measuring stick, right? And so whenever you are saying, I'm faithful, I'm faithful, I'm faithful, but you're still stuck under those mass fears that we talked about in 2, procrastination, people pleasing, all of those things, you got to ask yourself, why are those things still prevalent in my life, and how do I remove those things from my life so I can get to a fully faithful life? Here's a reflection and an affirmation. Consistency, not intensity, is what informs us and transforms us, right? And so consistency, not intensity, right? And so it is being faithful. I'm going to rewind this for you because it is a walkthrough. When I say in the beginning that you have to do it every day, if you're going to live it every day, then you have to be faithful every day. And so consistency then has to become your habit, and your habit, and your habit. And your habit has to become your behavior, and your behavior has to become your norm. Anytime your norm is not emulating that thing that says that you're faithful, you have to look through the path and find out what is disrupting your ability to be faithful. So it's not about believing real hard, being I believe in this, and you're fighting about it on Facebook, and you're challenging people who are saying certain things on Facebook, and you're doing all of those kinds of things, you know, to protect, you know, that thing that you believe in. But Is are you doing that consistently? Is the question. Do you do it every time you see it? Or do you just do it at the moment that you feel like it is a need to stand up for that? But let's talk about those daily habits and the power, of daily habits, which is why you really have to create, those kinds of habits in order to be able to be successful in your consistency, right? And so the first one is intention over avoidance. Every morning, you should name what matters before the world names it for you, right? You get up in the morning and you have to look in the mirror and you have to say something, to yourself. Um, one of the things that I think you also have to do is you have to kind of be mindful of the person who's looking back at you, right? And so who are you talking to? Because sometimes in the morning you're not yourself, and your morning self shows up when your afternoon self should show up. And so, but each morning, it is a way to jumpstart your day. It is a way to level set how you're going to approach the day. And you do that by naming what matters to you and not allowing those things that don't matter, the small stuff, the insignificant stuff, the distraction stuff, doesn't matter. But name what does matter so you can always refocus yourself when other things are taking place. The other thing you could do, and I got something in my eye, scratching my eye, but we're going to keep it moving. Speak truth to doubt. Start your day with one courageous truth, even if you whisper it. It's important to speak to yourself and let it be courageous, not small, not, I just want to get through the day. Like, you want to do more than just get through the day, right? You want to, there's I always in school, it's amazing, how people uh, draw the sun. And so, right? And then what the sun means, but we always expect that the sun is going to radiate heat for us. But there is something about the sun to which you can activate by just recognizing that it is the sun. It is really, it's a give and take, right? And so you want to come out and meet the sun, right? You want to meet the day. You want to start the day. You want to greet the day. You want to welcome the day. You don't just want the day to happen, right? You want to take command over the day. And the best way to do that is to speak it before you even walk out the door. So when you walk out the door, that thing manifests itself in your life. It manifests itself in your behavior. It manifests itself in whatever comes upon you during the day. It becomes reflective of that thought you've given yourself that morning. The other thing, and one of the ways that you could do that, is by creating a space for reflection. 5 minutes of quiet can be more powerful than an hour of noise. Sometimes when I'm in my car, like, I love all kinds of music, and my mood can shift from day to day to day. Sometimes I'm country, sometimes I'm a little bit of rock and roll, sometimes I'm hip hop, sometimes I'm jazz, sometimes I'm Latin, sometimes I'm old school reggae, sometimes I just want to listen to meditation music. And then there are those times that I don't want to listen to nothing. Complete silence in the car. I'll turn everything off. I won't listen to my talk radio shows or talk sports shows, CNN, BBC, NPR. I'll shut all of that stuff off and live within inside my own mind. One of the best times I love to drive is in the summertime at night, when there's not a lot of traffic out, and I can roll my window down and just listen to the sounds of the road and listen to the sounds of outside. And so it's tranquil, and a lot of things can happen. For me, when I get into that space, there are certain spaces that I get into that when I really want to hear from God, I know I have to get into that quiet space where I am removing the noise of my day, the noise of what's happening around me, and the noise of distraction, so that I can hear the voice that commands my direction and qualifies my purpose. The other thing you should think about doing is going through what we call a reframing practice, right? When something doesn't go yourself, again, ask yourself, what is this making room for? So sometimes, I talk about this all the time, right? 3 answers to prayer: yes, not now, and I have something, else for you. And so I'm really, that helps me in reframing, because I oftentimes think about when something is going wrong, like, what is the answer that's framing this thing? Yes is very clear, right? You get what you want. Not now is pressing upon you that you have to have a little bit of patience, right? I have something else is then the faithfulness that says that what I'm asking for is not what I need and not purposeful to that thing that I'm called for. And I have to be trustful and faithful that there is something else out there for me. So sometimes you have to go through a reframing of what it is you're going through by asking yourself, what is this making room for, right? Because fear tells us we're disqualified, but faith teaches us that we're becoming. So sometimes we are becoming something, and because the full picture has not been painted yet, we're not exactly sure why this thing I'm asking for is not being given to me right now, because you think you need it right now. But what you need is something that is going to be beneficial for you as you become wherever it is you're going, that you don't quite know what it is yet, because your task at the moment is just to follow the breadcrumbs and be faithful that your purpose is going to bring you there. And so along that journey, you're going to fail, right? You're going to make the wrong decision. But here's the cool thing about that: failure isn't the end, it's the classroom. The only thing failure proves is that you are willing to try. That alone is evidence of life, right? So keep trying. Don't give up. Don't give up. Don't give up. Don't give up. Rejection is oftentimes redirection. When doors close, it isn't always about you being unworthy. It's often about something not being aligned. And so sometimes, like, in a weird way, so when we talk about this kind of like this faithfulness, right, and how things kind of show up in our lives, one of the things that I always, somewhat think about when it comes to that is oh my goodness gracious. Make sure I got my technology right here, right? With respect to how many of you, let me take my jacket off too. How many of you, traffic has always been a big, thing for me. Like traffic, there's something about traffic, that tells you a lot about life. It's really crazy, right? And so, particularly traffic signs, right? Because the whole notion of driving in traffic is this notion of having somewhere to go, having a way to get there, knowing how to get there, and how to navigate all the things that are between your start and your finish, right? So, redirection or rejection is oftentimes redirection, right? And so, you kind of like you're driving along. Let's kind of make this a, you know, highway in Atlanta, of all places, right? And so, if any of you know sometimes about Atlanta, right? And so cars could be coming down, coming down this way. I'm not even going to try to drive a car. I'm just going to say cars driving this way, right? And you know, sometimes this little line here will start here, right? As opposed to here. And so if this isn't an exit only lane, some of these cars can continue to go this way, while some of them can go this way. But every once in a blue mile in the city of Atlanta, right? You'll have this car here. Y'all know where I'm going with this. Get another color. Help you out here. You'll have this car here. Trying to think of where I'm going to have them start from, because this is how it happens. Go all the way, cut all the way here, and go that way. The challenge, right, and sometimes the accidents that occur in Atlanta happens because this car here is looking at this, not thinking about this car, right? And when he does that, all of a sudden, his mind has to redirect. His or her mind has to redirect. But because they're focused on their goal and because they're focused on all the things around them, this can either be something that is not impactful or something that is disastrous. Many times when it's me driving, I don't drive in Atlanta without being aware when I see an exit of who's over here on this side, because I never know when somebody's going to try to do that. So I approach that in my mind where there's a possibility that somebody's going to cut me off, right? But at the same time, I'm also mindful, right, that what's happening in Atlanta, right, is the backup over here. The backup is happening here. So now everything over here slows down, right? I'm over here. They're trying to get out and get over here. And now because I'm seeing red lights up here, now I'm thinking I probably need to do the same thing and try to get up, try to get out. Here's where I'm going with this with respect to rejection, is redirection. I often wonder sometimes when it comes to these kinds of traffic patterns in my life where I'm in a major rush to get somewhere and things are happening in front of me and I'm getting extremely frustrated by what's happening in front of me. And I'm thinking to myself, man, not again, another traffic jam. It's like, I'm so sick and tired of this. I just need to get to where I'm going. Not even understanding or taking into consideration that really is it that urgent that you need to kind of be, there at that time? If you think about it from a faith perspective, if you reframe, we just talked about it, if you reframe that this occurring right here could be something that is saving your life, or going to slow you down to avoid something that is up here that you don't even know about, right? An accident, a bridge out, to overturned truck, whatever the case may be, or something that's going to happen, in wherever it is you're going. And God is trying to slow you down. And He knows that if He doesn't create this jam for you, right, to which you're interpreting it as a rejection and not a redirection. He's saying, I know this is, when you left home, this is what you thought the route was going to be, but I don't really need you here at this point in time. I'm going to need to redirect you. So I'm going to put something in your life that's going to jam you up, and you're going to have to go this way in order to get to your destination, and it may take you a little longer, but you're ultimately going to get there. That's what reframing looks like. Reframing sometimes also happens in the immediacy of what's going on in your life at the moment. Sometimes it's not you sitting down thinking about how the day is going to go and then you expecting that the day is going to go as planned, but being able to shift your mindset, because if I'm thinking that way, I could be thinking in my mind, and this happens, right? When this person cuts across, depending on your personality, you either look at them like, you call them a name and you keep on moving, or it disrupts your entire day. You cuss them out in your mind, call them all kinds of names. He or she messes up your center, so now you're driving a little more erratically. You're trying to make a point that in your car, and maybe this was about getting your attention to something that's going on up there and getting you to pay attention so that you would have a chance to also go that way as well. And so sometimes the reframing doesn't always happen back here. Sometimes the reframing happens or has to happen at a moment's notice. And you have to be okay with whatever that redirection is at the time and not interpret that redirection as a rejection from your pathway going this way, but a redirection so that you can get to where it is you're trying to get to more safely. Does that make sense? Y'all tracking with me? I know that was a long, and I wasn't even intended to go all the way there with you, but as I was, writing that, in my mind, I just wanted to kind of stop and do that, for you, just to kind of, make sure that, we're on the same, we're on the same page with respect to that. So, yeah. So make sure, that, when it comes to this faith over fear thing, you are, thinking about reframing, what you may be interpreting as failure and rejection as just redirection. The other thing you could do is establish some spiritual practices for those of you who are led by the Spirit, whatever spirit that is. And sometimes there is 4 different ways that you can do that, right? The first way is faith declarations, Bible verses, or affirmations that speak life over your own life, speak trust over control by saying things like, I am rooted even when I can't see the fruit, right? Again, it's this faithfulness. It's establishing this thing that allows you. I'm going back to Hebrews 11:1. Faith is the evidence of things hoped for, right? And so you're hoping for something and you want to make sure that that happens. And sometimes you have to declare who you are and the circumstance that you're in as you're going forward. And a declaration like this, I am rooted even when I can't see the fruit, is motivation and encouragement to keep going forward. Another way to establish a spiritual practice is silence, right? Not absence, but awareness. Let stillness be where insight arises. We just talked about like how I like to be in the car with no noise. Sometimes it's important to be still. I think a lot of us believe that the answers don't come unless we're just like bouncing all over the place. And that's not true. Sometimes the best answers come when you're just still, when you just allow the answer to come to you and to remove all of that clutter that's in your mind out of your mind so that you can function. Studying, feed your soul through text, poetry, philosophy, music that lifts you out of fear thinking, encouraging stuff. Watch things that are encouraging, watch things that, triumph movies, right? A lot of sports movies are triumph movies. It starts with all of the things that have gone wrong in the individual's life, and then it's the build up. It's the Rocky, template. Guy has nothing, doesn't know what he wants to do, meets someone, gets married, finds out he can box a little bit. Next thing you know, he's the world heavyweight champion, right? It's the Rocky scenario. And sometimes, studying things, reading, triumph stories and reading inspirational stories on how people got to where they are and really digging in and learning how long it took them to get there and what kinds of things went wrong on their journey and things that they overcame in order to be successful. And then the last thing is what we hope that the Season Collective does for you is find your community. You don't have to be strong alone. You need people who will speak to your strength when you forget it. And so community is important. It's important that you surround yourself with people who are going to love on you, who's going to be honest with you, who's going to encourage you, inspire you, affirm you, relate to you, share with you, be transparent with you, and to a certain extent be influential in your life. It's always important to have those communities around you. And the last thing I'm going to share with you is an exercise that I'd love for you to engage in, and that is writing your faith over fear creed. Because if you don't name your truth, the world will name it for you. And so, what is a creed, Mr. Braswell? Okay, here's what a creed is. A creed is your personal code, a living reminder of who you are and how you want to move through this life. And so it really is just the thing that speaks to you. This is my template. This is my footprint. This is my blueprint. This is who I am. This is how this is how you know me, right? And so writing that creed sometimes is very encouraging, and it gives you something to fall back on where you don't feel so inspired to continue to move on. And so you can start by just writing a paragraph that starts with, "From this day forward, I choose. From this day forward, I choose." And what you're doing is you're beginning to put the template together of how you're going to live a faith-filled life every day by following your own creed, which is the journey map for how you're going to ultimately get to being faithful every day by building that habit. Remember, we talked about building that habit, building that behavior. You can include truths like, "I will not shrink to keep others comfortable." Things like, "I am not too late." Things like, "My voice has value even when it trembles." Like, you know the things that you need encouragement for. You know what you need to hear at the most vulnerable moments in your life. Put those things in your creed so that you can begin to speak to yourself even before someone else speaks to you. I will share mine with you, right? And so this is something I think about all the time. It keeps me focused, and it's personal to me. Some of this might resonate to you, may work for you. Today, I choose trust over control. I choose presence over performance. I choose to live as if I am enough because I am. I walk forward not because I don't feel fear, but because I remember my strength. My life has purpose and I will live like I believe it. It's a lot of faith in that creed right there. But if you memorize that and you can put that in your psyche, and maybe that is the thing that you say to yourself each and every morning, that you look in the mirror, put that creed on the mirror. Remember, if you're a Rocky fan, one of the things that Rocky, I remember him doing, is putting the picture of Apollo Creed on the mirror in the bathroom. And so when he got up in the morning to do what he did, brush his teeth, hair, whatever, in the mirror, he not only was looking at himself, but he was telling himself something about this thing that he had to overcome, and this was the opponent in the fight. And so make sure you think about a circle of courage. What would it look like to show up as the version of me every day? Think about that. Think about that and talk to others about that. Talk to others' aspirations of you and ask people for inspiration. Have them tell me something that they admire about you, or have them tell you something that they would like to see you do. Or, it can always remain positive. You ain't gotta, it doesn't have to be one of those, what do they call those things when they bring people into a room? It's not intercession. What is it called? When they bring people into a room, and they don't know that the person don't know that he's walking into a room and everybody's going to tell them about how they feel about him, whatever that's called. It don't have to be that. It could be something celebratory, something that doesn't, make you feel like you're worthless. And so you should know this. You've done the courageous work. You've named the fear, dismantled the lies, and made space for your truth. Hopefully over the last 3 of these sessions, over these few weeks on Faith Over Fear, that you have more faith in your space than fear, and that working on your fear is easier when you begin to recognize that faith ultimately wins over fear at every moment. And when the opposite is happening, that's when you really have to examine and go a little deeper in your life to figure out exactly what it is. So what's next for us? The next challenge isn't just to survive fear, it's to carry what comes after it, right? Get rid of it, take on something bigger. I said before, and I said earlier, life is not without fear, right? You're always going to be fearful, and even fearful of success. Like, people just think that at some point they just become successful and there's no more fear in their life. It don't work like that. That's not how fear works, right? And so every challenge that you put in front of you, every step that you want to take up to scale is going to have some level of fear because it is new and unknown territory. So there is good fear, but that good fear is immediately disposed of by strong faith. It doesn't mean that fear doesn't show up. Many of us don't fear failure anymore. We're struggling with the pressure, loneliness, or expectation that comes from success. Many of us don't feel failure anymore. When you get to a space where you don't really fear failure, you also don't want to make failure a habit, right? Because failure as a habit is not good either. But again, how you redirect how you think about failure is the most critical aspect of that, which is when I fail, why did I fail? How did I fail? And what in my life is going to be strengthened as a result of this particular failure. It means that something in my life failed. It doesn't mean that you are a failure. There's a difference in that, right? So when you use those terms, be clear that what you are naming and describing is that thing that is occurring in your life or has occurred in your life. When you use that term fail and failure, that is not a moniker for you. You are not a failure. Everything in your life has purpose. And being faithful that in and of itself is true is going to give you your power over fear. And so at some point down the line, I've been thinking about this. I haven't done it yet, but, and I talked about it a little bit here. I think I want to do this thing on overcoming the pain of success. So look out. I may tackle that and try to do that at some point because I've been thinking a lot about the pain of success. All right. Listen, thank you so much. I appreciate you for joining us for another season session. I don't know what the next series is going to be. I'm just going to kind of play it by ear. That last one was a good one, but I may want to take a departure and go into another space and do something different. And there's a lot of things happening out there, and I want to continue to kind of bring this stuff to the forefront to give people the ability to be able, even in this season space, we've not stopped living, y'all. Just because you've hit the double nickel, 55 plus, or you may be on the opposite side and you just ear hustling in on the wisdom. But life is not over for us. There's a lot of life in front of you. And I know sometimes we can think, that life is, I hear people, I've said it myself, I've stopped saying it, but I hear people saying, I have more life behind me than I have in front of me. I don't know that. I don't know what God has planned for me. Especially since, I've not met some people, but I've heard folks who want me to come and interview people for seasoned conversations who are centennials. They're over not just 100, they over 100. And so, at this point, I'd be 120 something, but still, I don't know what God, has for me in my life. And so, thank you again. I appreciate you. Stay connected to the Season Collective. This is my calling, a part of the second level of my calling. And so I'm embracing it, and I'm going to do however and whatever I'm led to do in this space. I just hope that you take the journey along with me. Until next time, take care of yourself, be blessed, and peace out. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you enjoy, and I also hope you learned something during your time with us today. I wanted to just take a moment before I close all the way out and connect you with some opportunities to stay connected with us. First of all, if you have not purchased my book, Too Seasoned to Care, I suggest that you do that now. It is the bedrock, the foundation of everything that I'm doing. It will stimulate you. It will heal you. It will help you. Make sure that you go to either Amazon, Audible, if you like listening to my voice, iTunes. You can also go to our website at theseasoncollective.com, where you can also get our workbook. And so some point down the road, I'll be doing some lessons and some conversations where I'll be using the workbook. We also want you to join our community. We have several communities that we have created in order to stay connected to you. We have our Facebook community, both our group and our page. We have our LinkedIn page that we're going to be using for our business-oriented content, our Instagram page, and our YouTube page, where all of our videos are landing at the moment. We also want you to go to our website and subscribe so that you can stay connected to us, so we can make sure that we send you emails, keep you up to date on things that happen to be popping with us, to keep you in the community. And we want you to continue to stay connected to us on Fridays at 11 a.m. for a new episode of either seasoned conversations or seasoned sessions, whatever happens to kind of pop up in the flow of the work that we're doing. Once again, thank you for joining us. I am appreciative of the time that you are spending within this journey, this season journey that we're taking together. I hope to see you again. Take care and God bless.